But you can have this.
Does it do anything?
It tells the time.
G'day watchers, welcome to Perth Watch, your horology channel broadcasting from right here in Perth, Western Australia. Today I have a piece provided from the Lugyou watch company or watch store. LGY is the other name that they go by, and it comes in this particular packaging. And looking at this, I'm pretty darn sure it comes from the same factory as San Martin, which is actually not a bad thing, because that watch, that San Martin, surprised me no end for, you know, how much it costs and what it delivered. So this one has a bit of promising. You know, this brand is Cronos. I've never heard of them. They're probably fairly new, and of course they are going to be, not surprisingly, an homage watch company, or at least this piece is an homage to the James Bond Spectre Seamaster 300. So let's see what they can deliver. So without further ado, let's flip the camera around and take a closer look at this guy. Alright guys, so here we have the packaging on the table here, and if you own a San Martin or seen a review, you'll notice that this is exactly the same box, you know, that some of those come in, with the exception of a sticker showing the distributor here, LGY or Lugyou Watch Store. Okay, spinnability, actually it's not as spinnable as you might think, given that there's no rubber feet at the bottom here, but that's about a 3.5, I reckon, out of 5. Okay, so let's just open up. These are painfully difficult to open, so I only kind of put one to hold this down here. Okay, so not very well designed or well made. It does come, this particular watch, with this Bond NATO or NATO style. It's 2-piece, not fantastic quality, and I haven't actually bothered to try that because I wasn't actually very impressed at all. Underneath here, they do give curved spring bars, which is interesting. Links I've taken out, and then that international guarantee, which is kind of laughable. I don't know why they even try to put up that pretense, to be honest. Okay, so showing you the watch in closer detail here. So this is the Cronos Seamaster 300. Model number is LM6004, and the Seamaster 300 is very much the watch that it is aping. I'm going to put all the product links down the bottom here for you to check out more details if you wish, but the going price is generally around the US $200 mark, right? This is really what it sells for, fairly consistently. I haven't seen it go much cheaper than that. All right, so as is my usual style, let's talk about firstly the movement, which I think you kind of can guess. It's the same as the San Martin. So this is the Seiko NH35A inside here. I did open up and check what it is because I wanted to regulate it slightly. So all the specs down the left side of the screen here, unfortunately, yes, it does have a ghost date position, and I believe it actually does have a date ring that they haven't taken out. You can actually feel it when you play with that ghost date position. Rated accuracy down the bottom left there. In actual use, this has been running about -9 seconds. So I think I really want to regulate this a little bit better, and I'm going to open this again to try to get that result a little bit better. Okay, going on to the case here. The case itself, I'm going to tell you full disclosure, it's slightly smaller than the bezel diameter. So the case, if you measure it, is 40 millimeters. The bezel is the part that measures 41 millimeters. It states 41 on the website. And really, you got to take into account the bezel. That's really how it's going to wear on the wrist here. Thickness is pretty good, right? 12.5 millimeters, thanks to a fairly flat, low-profile case back and a not too high dome sapphire. It's actually 12.5. Very pleasing thickness. 20 millimeter lug width, and a lug-to-lug distance between my thumbs of 47.5 millimeters there. Overall weight on this metal bracelet is 155 grams with the number of links that I've removed. Okay, moving on to case finishing then. So the bezel is kind of this vertical grip edge here. It's a polished bezel. It does have a polished top of the surface of the lugs there, which transitions onto a bevel which is also polished pretty nicely done, I have to say, and then transitions sharply into longitudinal brushing on the case side there. And then the bottom, you can see, is circular brush, right, on the bottom surface of the lugs, and then most of that case back as well. But the periphery of the case back, where the grips for the case opener are, you can see is actually polished. So very nice transitions. The quality of the casework here is actually pretty darn good, I have to say. Okay, so that's really the case. Just letting you feast your eyes on the case craft here. So screw down, solid case back, right? Without any artwork, I guess there's a space in the middle there they could have used, but they've chosen to leave it plain. And then the crown as well, they've kind of left it plain. So a little bit of kind of improvements they could put in here. All right, plain crown, screw down plain crown. The water resistant rating they've gone for is 200 meters. So kind of a proper dive rating. Would you trust a Chinese company like this? Some people wouldn't, but I personally, I wouldn't hesitate taking this into a pool. I don't really go scuba diving, I haven't done so for years, but I wouldn't hesitate taking this into a pool. This is how I personally feel about the quality and the feel of these Chinese watches, at least at this level. Okay, so guys, let's talk about the dial now. So the dial here is pretty nicely done as well, I have to say. So this is a matte, fine textured black colored dial, right? There's a very fine texture to it, and again, that's obviously taken from the Seamaster 300. It's got printed details, right? The brand name, the automatic down the bottom, as well as the 369 numerals. They're all printed, along with the chapter ring around the periphery. But the real interesting thing here is they've really tried to do those recessed indices, or they've called it sandwich dial. I doubt it's a proper sandwich dial, but they've actually recessed the indices here to kind of aid the omega. And hopefully in these macros, you can see the three-dimensional nature of this dial, and the indices are where they fill that 4 patina lume. The hands are simple baton style hands, right? Hopefully you can kind of appreciate that. It's got a nicely polished finish, along with that arrow seconds hand with very simple rectangular counterbalance. The lume, that 4 patina, is on all the usual spots along with the full bezel. So pretty nicely done in terms of how it glows in the dark. And I'll put a lume shot here for you guys to appreciate the glow. But straight up, I'll say that it's not thickly applied, right? It doesn't last very long, and by the morning you really struggle to see this after a night in the dark. Okay, so surrounding the dial is a unidirectional dive style bezel with a polished ceramic insert, which is again very nicely done. There is a texture, these are recessed, so it's been kind of cut into the ceramic. All these 15-minute marks, as well as the 15, 30, 45 numerals. Pretty nicely done, pretty nicely polished. The bezel itself, interestingly, it feels like it's a 240 click. I'm not going to be able to really show you, but I'll just turn it. Very soft. I can feel 10 clicks to 2.5 minutes. Right? Probably you can't hear it on the camera. It's very soft. I'm not sure whether that's a mistake or did they deliberately make that many clicks. This is the only time I've felt this many clicks on the bezel. It's really kind of interesting. There is a very slight degree of backplay, but it feels overall solid enough. So just find the 12 o'clock position. Okay, so that's a curiosity. Let me know if you've seen another watch with 240 clicks. This is the only one I've seen, and it's really kind of odd, actually, to be honest, but solid enough, I gotta say. The way they've done it, solid enough. Not really going to complain too much about that. Okay, and then on top of the dial is a very lightly domed, hopefully you can see that, very lightly domed, not very thick at all, sapphire crystal with, I think it's pretty sure it's got some degree of AR on the inside there. Okay, that's what you're getting. And then moving on to the bracelet, guys. So the bracelet, I think, yes, it is copying the Omega, but just looking at it, it's not exactly the same. I want to say this is more just as much an oyster style bracelet as anything else, and I'm going to call it an oyster style bracelet. It does have that polished center links. It goes on to brush on the side and brush on the the side surfaces or sidewalls of the links here. The adjustment is not just push pin, but it's actually pin and collar. So, you know, pretty solid. Some people really like that because that's one of the most secure pin adjustments you can get. It does taper from 20 to 18 millimeters at the narrower portion. Okay. All right, solid ends, you can see there, and it's got a pressed metal housing for the clasps, but relatively solid machine arms there, and you know, push button release with 4-point micro adjustment, you can see there. All right, I mean, this part's probably just Chinese OEM, but you know, the finishing isn't too bad. It's definitely better than the sub $100 watches that I've reviewed. Okay. Right, so that's the description of the watch. Gonna just snap it on the wrist. Just show you guys on the wrist now. And there we have it, guys. The Cronos Seamaster 300, right, on my 17 centimeter wrist. So remembering a 41 millimeter diameter bezel, 47.5 millimeters lug to lug. Fairly slim at 12.5 for a dive style watch of this, you know, kind of shape. And that's how that metal bracelet sits. All right, and I think it sits fairly well for a wrist that's not very large like mine. So if you have a larger wrist, definitely you can carry this without too much trouble. Okay, so what have I enjoyed about this? Guys, what a great package. You know, much like the San Martin, this has been very surprising to me. So you're getting this Seiko movement, really quite good quality casework. I really gotta say, the casework and the bracelet as well, you know, pretty nicely done. You know, the bracelet, you know, has the solid ends, you know, the clasp is not too bad, and the finishing is as good as anything that I've ever seen at the $200 range. You know, the case, you know, well done, right? Slim design, which is nice. You know, the dial, even though it's probably not a proper sandwich, is pretty well done, right? Nice handset, you know, nicely polished there. The bezel finishing with that polish is pretty good. And on top of that, you're getting a, you know, fairly nicely mild dome sapphire there. Really, really good package if you like this look. What are the concerns? Well, look, there's not much for me to say. Ultimately, it's an homage piece, right? The good looks are all stolen, right? So they didn't design this. This is a heavy homage. So again, not something that everybody will want, but this watch isn't that common, right? So at least it's not another Rolex Mariner, is what I can say. And then the rest of it is, you know, slight nitpickings. You know, drilled lugs on a watch like this would be nice. They haven't done that. The lume, I have to say, is relatively poor. That's probably one of the most annoying things, I suppose. I wish they would have done the lume a lot better than they did. This lume isn't fantastic. It doesn't last very long. And then lastly, this thing feels like a bit of an afterthought, and I'm not going to use it because it just isn't great, you know. So it would have been nice to get that Bond Seamaster look, but this isn't the strap to do it. I don't think. I'm not going to use that. Okay, so there you go, guys. My thoughts on this very surprising watch. Let's flip the camera around now for the wrap up. So there you go, guys. My review of the Cronos Seamaster 300. A watch that has surprised me no end. I was actually very pleasantly blown away by the quality, the materials, the fit and finish that this delivered at the price point of 200. You know, essentially the same level as that St. Martin Seiko 62 mass, which I reviewed that long ago. Let me know what you think about this piece, particularly if you have any experience with Cronos, this kind of a little bit of a mysterious brand. If you own any of their pieces, I would certainly like to know your thoughts. Guys, if you enjoy my videos, do consider subscribing. New content every week, always aiming to be objective and unbiased about all things horology. Thank you again for sticking with me, and as always, I'll catch you guys again next time.